ready?
Yeah.
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
Now, Ross Kaminsky.
Come on, man.
On Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
All right, good morning. It's Tuesday. I'm Ross. Thanks for being here. Did you say it's National Camera Day? Cameras are an interesting thing. They're making a little bit of a comeback, but cameras as a standalone thing mostly sort of erased, except for professional photographers, are sort of erased by smartphones. And the quality of cameras in our phones now is pretty good for something this tiny, but I've always liked cameras. I think I got that from my parents when we were traveling around as a kid, and my parents would take a lot of pictures. But, of course, back then you really had to pay super close attention to every picture. You guys remember the days of, okay, I realize if you're under the age of maybe 25, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. Not that anyone under the age of 25 is up at 6:07 in the morning. But do you remember, Shannon, you remember, because you're old like I am, do you remember this thing called film? There was a thing called film. This existed in the days before people had microwaves. It did exist in the days of CD players, but mostly in the days of record players.
Producer Shannon.
Yes?
I was actually a professional photographer before I got into radio.
Really? Did you use this thing called film?
That's all I did. I didn't even have autofocus.
Wow. Did you have a favorite camera?
Canon T90.
Excellent. And what did you photograph?
Take a photo and then hammer the nail into the wall to hang the picture.
Built like a tank, right? Yeah. But the thing with film, besides the fact that it's a pretty spectacular technology if you think about how all that works, the thing with film is that it means that you don't know whether you took a good picture until much later after it's developed and printed. And also, there's a cost, a fairly significant cost for every picture. And my dad used to tell me, Ross, if you get one picture that's truly worth keeping out of every roll of film, you're doing pretty well. If you get two, you're a really, really excellent photographer. Most of the time, you'll get none. And just think about that. You paid a few dollars for the roll of film. You paid a few dollars to get the film developed and printed. You'd take it over to the drugstore. Or there were some of these places. Every once in a while now you find a little standalone hut, shack, small structure that you drive up to and order coffee. Well, that could easily in the past have been a film development, a film thing. They used to have these drive-up film things, and you'd hand off your roll of film, and then you'd come back later, and they'd hand you back the prints in a little paper envelope that said Kodak or sometimes Fujifilm on it. Remember that, Shannon? And
the photomat.
The photomat, yeah.
I believe one of them got blown up in Back to the Future.
Okay, and I don't remember that, but I believe you. And but you'd end up paying 15, 20, 25 cents per picture, and most of them sucked. I mean, even ones where you did the double clutch and you were trying to take one picture and you hit it and you didn't get your finger quite off the button and you moved the camera a little and took another one. You paid for that. It's one of the beautiful things now, which still applies on National Camera Day because it's not National Film Day. It's National Camera Day. Now you can take all the pictures in the world for free. What is that?
Duran Duran.
Duran Duran. I was thinking, I could tell it wasn't the one I was thinking of. I was thinking of Jay Giles, right? Is that My Angel is a Centerfold? Is that the one that starts with a similar sound? No. Which is the one? Oh, man. I know there's another one that starts with the camera sound. Anyway. All right, National Camera Day. Enjoy your National Camera Day, and if Shannon can find any other camera sounds in music, I'll be very impressed. We've got 3 cameras in our studio today. Shannon, are you messing with them right now? So are we on YouTube at the moment? If you go to youtube.com and type in Ross Kaminsky, you'll find the live stream. And Shannon actually has 3 cameras set up in here today because we're going to have some in-studio guests in the 8:05. Actually, for the whole 8 o'clock hour, we're going to have a couple of gentlemen here. I'm really looking forward to this. Let me just tell you about it now. Excellent segue from National Camera Day as Shannon is playing with the camera setup. Lieutenant General Rod Bishop, U.S. Air Force retired, and Dr. and Air Force Colonel Ron Scott, also retired. They run an organization called STARS with 2 R's. I mentioned it briefly yesterday. Stand Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. And we are going to spend a full hour talking about the state of the military today, the state of the military leadership, the infiltration of wokeness. We're going to talk about General Milley. Oh my gosh, I don't have this audio for you, but if you caught any of the Laura Ingraham show on Fox News last night, I normally don't watch that show because I don't like Laura very much, but Ben Domenech was guest hosting. And Ben Domenech did this really long, it's probably every bit of 5 minutes, which on network television, to do one thing for 5 minutes in just a straight up monologue is unbelievable. It was this long takedown of General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who recently made this, noises about, I need to read all this stuff. I want to understand white rage. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, Domenech just wrecked Mark Milley yesterday. Not just wrecked him for all of this wokeness and previous comments about, bad things that the United States has done, but wrecked him for never having won a war. I mean, he's never been involved with something that we won, one failure after another, and not just war, other kinds of policies, a new Army exercise program that apparently was a massive failure. I didn't follow that story, but Ben talked about it yesterday. It was an I've never seen anything like it from a conservative. A massive takedown of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I'm going to try to find a link for it. If I can, I'll share it with you. Before that, at 7:05, we've got Corey DeAngelis, Ph.D. from the American Federation for Children. He's one of the nation's leading experts on school choice. He's involved with Cato Institute, Reason Foundation, and just a cool guy, and we are going to talk a lot about school choice. And at 9:05, we're going to talk with Corbin Barthold from Tech Freedom about this very big story yesterday that I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next segment of this show, and then we'll have Corbin on in the 9 o'clock hour. The federal court decision regarding challenges by the Federal Trade Commission and by a bunch of states against Facebook, arguing that Facebook is a monopoly and should be subject to the next step in antitrust legislation. And I'm going to talk more about what the judge said in the next segment of the show. Let me do a couple other things here. All right, first, let me just back off and talk about a macro concept. Sometimes you find that the nation or the world or your community or whatever scope of this you want to look at has been living and thinking a certain way for a really, really long time. Been living and thinking a way that has been going on for so long that it's difficult to imagine the system or the society operating any other way. It's difficult to imagine people changing their views. And then at some point, something changes. It's like a switch gets flipped. And especially these days, I think social media is a big part of it. These things can happen in a much more dramatic and much more rapid way than you might think, leading to changes that not too long before that, many people might have thought would be impossible. A couple of very obvious examples. Legalization of marijuana. There has rarely been an issue that on a national scale flipped as far and as fast as the legalization of marijuana. I can think of one other, and I'm going to mention that in a moment. But we went from a time not that long ago where the legalization of marijuana seemed almost inconceivable. And then Colorado and Washington State dipped their toes in. And I'm not looking to debate with you the merits of the legalization of marijuana. You can hear me support legalization and you can hear Dan oppose it, all on the same radio station. So I'm not looking to debate the merits. I'm just saying we went from a time where, again, not that long ago, legalization of marijuana would have seemed close to impossible. And almost nobody other than some wacky libertarians and some stoners would have argued for it. And yet here we are with the majority of the country in favor of it. And the people who continue to argue against it, like my friend and colleague Dan Caplis, just seem a little bit out of touch with the times and fighting a losing battle, even though I know they believe what they're saying. They're fighting against a change in public opinion that is simply not going to change back. It's never going to be like it was. And then another issue that I think falls into that category, and perhaps even more so, perhaps a bigger and faster shift, gay marriage. Not that long ago, it would have seemed essentially inconceivable that gay marriage would be legal in the United States of America. Remember, Prop 8 in California banned same-sex marriage in 2008. Okay, it's only 13 years ago. Prop 8 passed in California, one of our most liberal, most quote-unquote progressive states. Huge gay population in California with all the entertainment industries out there. And even in California, it didn't pass. Just 12 and a half years ago, they banned same-sex marriage. It was later overturned in court, but that's not my point. Public opinion, even in California, was against same-sex marriage barely over a decade ago. And now the vast majority of the public is in favor of it. What an incredibly rapid change on both of these really big issues. Now, the next thing I want to mention is not in that category when it comes to societal significance, but I was still thinking about it in that context because in the not too distant future, we may look at this particular issue and say, I'm kind of surprised it was ever any other way, right? We're still a little bit too close, but only a little, to marijuana legalization and gay marriage for people to say, I can't believe it was ever any other way. But I'll tell you, the next generation, kids who are born today, by the time they become adults, they will say, I can't believe it was ever any other way about marijuana and gay marriage. So here's a story that I was thinking about that way. This is from the Washington Post. The NCAA's Division I Council recommended Monday, that would be yesterday, that the organization cease its long-held amateurism rules regarding name, image, and likeness rights. And by the way, that'll go by the acronym NIL. A seismic shift in long-standing policies that prohibited college athletes from benefiting financially from their talents and fame. Now, remember, the NCAA has long argued that if student athletes started making money because they got famous as college students playing sports and were making money by jerseys being sold with their names on them or any other thing that they're going to do to make money, the NCAA argued that would turn what are supposed to be amateur sports in college into professional sports, and they argued that would be bad for college sports. And there is maybe some truth to that, but the main truth is that the NCAA and the colleges that are, especially the larger colleges that are part of all this, just wanted to keep all the money. So the amateurism stuff was, somewhat true, but mostly an excuse. The 24-member NCAA Division I Board of Directors will review and is expected to approve this recommendation tomorrow. And one of the reasons they're doing that tomorrow is that 8 of the 21 states that passed state laws allowing athletes this NIL option, those laws go into effect on Thursday. In Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, New Mexico, Ohio, and Texas. Kentucky was by an executive order of the governor. The rest laws passed by the legislature. Arizona has a law passed going into effect July 23rd. 12 other states have laws going into effect other times, but some might move to bring those laws closer to the present with all this. Faced with the prospect of athletes playing under different sets of rules depending on the state in which they attend college, the 40-member NCAA Division I Council, composed largely of university athletic directors, sought to even the playing field by suspending the policy that prohibited athletes from benefiting financially in such a way. It said athletes could employ, quote, a professional services provider for NIL activities and should report all such endeavors consistent with state law or school and conference requirements to their school. They also say, while opening NIL activities, name, image, likeness, to student athletes, the policy leaves in place the commitment to avoid pay-for-play and improper inducements tied to choosing to attend a particular school. Well, good luck with that. Those prohibitions would remain in effect, they say. I don't know how you police that. I'm not expert on this. Maybe we need to get Dave Logan back, but I just don't know how you police it. Schools have already started to partner with companies to help athletes navigate the landscape of NIL and build their personal brands. Some college athletes with huge social media followings already have plans to profit once the rules change Thursday. Under the rules, athletes can profit off their fame through avenues such as social media posts, appearances, sponsorships, autograph sales, endorsement deals, and private training classes or camps. You get the idea. Anyway, we'll see how this all plays out. I'm guessing that like almost every major policy change, like, for example, the legalization of marijuana, there will be pluses and there will be minuses. There will be people who want to go back to the way that it was. And just like with the legalization of marijuana, it will never go back the way it was, because in the aggregate, even though there is some downside, in the aggregate, we're better off the new way. When we come back, we're going to talk about this huge decision in a lawsuit against Facebook.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky now. Tom Martino at 10, 630 KHOW, Denver.